What is the meaning and significance of the nation's motto, E pluribus unum?
Well, E pluribus unum translates to out of many one, which is really significant because now America has 50 states, which all combine together to create one country and one nation. So it's all these states working together to be one country.
When the colonies first established themselves after the Revolution from Britain, they operated under the Articles of Confederation. And the issue initially, or not initially, but eventually with the Articles of Confederation were that all of the independent states were not acting together as one unified nation, but rather they were deciding their own individual policies on a state-to-state basis. Demolishing the Articles of Confederation and establishing the Constitution truly manifested the statement E pluribus unum because all of these states truly were able to come together and have a system of federal government that was able to regulate on a whole the policies of the country.
It is also apparent that back when colonies were formed as well as today, we have much diversity within the United States with different ideals within the United States. And I believe that, as stated in the preamble, we are making our way towards a more perfect union. And through the combination of these differences, we're able to culminate into one power that hopefully can represent the people.
Going off what David said, the whole diversity issue, like currently the United States is so diverse, and like with the saying E pluribus unum, like because we have so many different like opinions or different ways of going about things like cultures and all that stuff. Like we're still united, and we have to like come together to either, I don't know, fight a war or make a huge decision. Like we still come together and put like aside our differences to a certain extent to create that level of unity.
Is there, I go to man. Some people claim that the best way to achieve common good is for each person to work only for his or her self-interest. Do you agree?
The premise of enlightened self-interest, or enlightened civic virtue, which is something that our founders relied heavily upon, is that through education, an individual can come to realize that acting for the good of the community or for the good of the nation of a whole actually in turn will come to benefit the individual on a self basis. So I would argue that by working for one's self-interest, if an individual is truly enlightened and truly understands all of the factors that play into their quality of life as a citizen of a certain nation, then by working for the good of the whole nation, they are working for their own self-interest.
And there's no way to guarantee that a person's self-interest will necessarily go toward the common good. For example, many industrial corporations within the United States and other countries are obviously polluting our ecosystem as well. So going towards their self-interest doesn't necessarily mean that it's promoting the common good for the rest of the community that they're polluting.
And also, based off what David said, people, if they work towards what they want, isn't necessarily towards what is good for everyone, and there could be greater masses of people working towards what they want. So say like 50% of the nation wanted to be bakers, and you have like the other 50% who's like, oh wait, we need farmers, but there can be more where people want to go, and then where the other people don't have. Okay, people want to go into some places, but there's other places that can be neglected and not as popular, but we need people working there too. We need it more evenly spread out.
Is there a difference between rule of law and constitutional law?
Rule of law is where everybody, like including higher powers, not necessarily higher powers, but like the government and everything like beneath it, they all have to follow the same laws. So it sets a level of equality there. In constitutional law, it's laws that are directed or like implemented or described within the Constitution. So it gives citizens rights, and it also allows the government certain rights, but not necessarily. So there is a difference between them, because it's where the government and everybody else has to follow certain laws, while the constitutional law gives everyone else laws while like not necessarily giving the government any.
I'll stop there. Ashley, you gotta hit it and quit it. And you gotta finish strong because you just said the same thing 3 times. Okay? You gotta get quick. You got a great first answer. You gotta get quicker. Unit 4, start making your way up. Hang on. E pluribus unum. Out of many one. What philosophical idea is this? Out of many one. Is that natural rights or classical republicanism? Let's hit the hell out of classical. That's the whole purpose of it. In a huge society that is very diverse, such as a Hispanic or a Chinese, we can bring that even further. Okay? Be personal. All right. I know there's a big one. All right, Unit 4. How did early state constitutions reflect America's fear of centralized power?
Many early state constitutions followed John Locke's ideas of legislative supremacy because after experiencing the potential for tyranny under the British system, they sought to give people a bigger voice in government and thought the legislative branch should be the most powerful to reflect the views of the people.
Also going off of what Wyatt said, the Articles of Confederation were very heavily giving power to the states, which they kind of followed along with how they were. It was a direct response to their experiences under British rule because they were truly fearful of having too much central power, having the tyrannical problems, and not being able to have a way for the people's voices to be heard.
More than anything, I think early ideas of constitutions really, they just wanted to feel as if they're represented. I think the biggest problem with while they were under British rule was that they didn't feel as though they had as much of a voice, especially because the government was so powerful. So I think they believed that if they were to make the central government less powerful, they felt that they would have more influence and maybe be able to have their voice heard more than ever.
Do you agree with Locke's argument for the supremacy of legislative power?
I think the importance of Locke's idea of legislative supremacy is important because it really tries to balance out the government, and it makes sure that there isn't one person who has too much power, one branch that is heavily in power against all the other branches. And it's also really important because it helps to reflect the people's views through representation and what the people want through state representatives, then the House of Representatives, and the Senate.
However, there are some downfalls to too much legislative supremacy. Some early states had severely limited executives that didn't have much power over the legislative branch, which allowed the legislative branch to potentially violate the rights of individuals. And during the Constitutional Convention, many founders kind of combated this through the Bill of Rights to guarantee rights to individuals to protect against legislative supremacy.
I do agree with Locke's argument for the supremacy of legislative power.
Saved by the bell. Okay.